This is Blake Thornhill, and today we're examining a corridor that's becoming one of Europe's most militarized zones. It's called the Suwałki Gap, a 65-kilometer stretch of land between Poland and Lithuania. And right now, it's at the center of a massive NATO military buildup that's fundamentally changing the security balance in the Baltic region. This narrow corridor sits between NATO allies Poland and Lithuania on one side, and Belarus and Russia's Kaliningrad Enclave on the other. For decades, military strategists have viewed it as a potential flashpoint. But what's happening there now goes beyond strategic theory. We're seeing actual troop deployments, new military bases, and billions in defense spending. And the implications reach far beyond this small piece of geography. Let me walk you through what's actually happening on the ground, who's involved, and what it means for European security. First, let's establish the basic geography here. Kaliningrad is a Russian exclave on the Baltic Sea, home to approximately 950,000 people according to 2021 Russian census data. It's separated from mainland Russia by Lithuania and Belarus. The region covers about 15,000 square kilometers and has been Russian territory since 1945, when it was annexed from Germany at the end of World War II. The Suwałki Gap is the land corridor that connects Kaliningrad to Belarus, Russia's closest ally. It's roughly 65 to 100 kilometers wide, depending on where you measure. NATO strategists have long identified this corridor as a critical vulnerability because Russian forces could theoretically use it to cut off the three Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, from the rest of NATO. But here's where the situation gets more complex. According to a 2023 RAND Corporation analysis, the strategic calculus around this corridor has shifted significantly since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. NATO's eastern flank countries have dramatically increased their military presence in the region. Poland, under its defense modernization program announced in 2022, committed to expanding its military to 300,000 active duty personnel and purchasing advanced weapons systems. Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia have all increased defense spending above NATO's 2% GDP target. Lithuania currently spends approximately 2.75% of GDP on defense, according to NATO's 2024 estimates. The strategic importance of Kaliningrad itself has also evolved. The exclave hosts Russia's Baltic fleet and has been a deployment site for Iskander-M tactical ballistic missiles, which have a range of approximately 500 kilometers. However, the military situation has become more complicated for Moscow since 2022. Now let's talk about what Poland and Lithuania are actually doing in this region. And I want to be clear, we're going to stick to documented deployments and official announcements, not speculation. According to Poland's Ministry of National Defense, the country has been implementing a major military modernization program. In 2022, Poland signed contracts to purchase 980 K2 Black Panther tanks from South Korea, with deliveries beginning in 2023. These are modern main battle tanks with 120mm smoothbore guns and advanced fire control systems. Poland has also acquired K9 Thunder self-propelled howitzers from South Korea. Reuters reported in July 2022 that Poland ordered 672 of these artillery systems. The K9 has a range of approximately 40 kilometers with standard ammunition and can fire 6 Standard 8 rounds per minute. The Polish 16th Mechanized Division is headquartered in Olsztyn, which is about 80 kilometers from the Kaliningrad border. The Polish Ministry of Defense confirmed in 2023 that this division has been reinforced as part of the country's eastern defense strategy. Lithuania has also made significant moves. In March 2024, Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda announced plans for a new military training area in Pabradė, near the borders with Belarus and Poland. According to the Lithuanian Ministry of Defense, this facility will cover approximately 14,600 hectares and accommodate brigade-level exercises with up to 4,000 troops. The Baltic Times reported in April 2024 that Lithuania and Poland are discussing expanded military cooperation, including joint training exercises and improved coordination between their armed forces. This represents a significant deepening of military ties between the two NATO members. Lithuania's 14th Mechanized Infantry Battalion, based in Pabradė, has been equipped with Javelin anti-tank missiles provided by the United States, according to the U.S. Defense Security Cooperation Agency. These are advanced anti-tank guided missiles with a range of approximately 2.5 kilometers. What makes these developments notable is their scale and timing. Poland's defense budget increased from approximately $13 billion in 2021 to over $30 billion projected for 2024, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. That's a massive increase in just 3 years. However, it's important to note that NATO officials characterize these deployments as defensive in nature. At a press conference in June 2024, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg stated that the alliance's presence in Eastern Europe is aimed at deterring potential aggression, not preparing for offensive operations. Germany's involvement in this region has been particularly significant given its historical reluctance to deploy forces in Eastern Europe, but that stance has shifted notably since 2022. In June 2023, Germany announced it would permanently station a combat-ready brigade in Lithuania as part of NATO's enhanced forward presence. According to the German Ministry of Defense, this involves approximately 4,800 German troops and will be Germany's first permanent foreign deployment since World War II. The brigade will be based near Vilnius and is expected to be fully operational by 2027. Deutsche Welle reported in September 2023 that Germany is investing approximately €1 billion in infrastructure to support this deployment, including barracks, training facilities, and equipment storage. This represents a major shift in German defense policy. For decades, Germany maintained a relatively small military footprint outside its borders. The decision to deploy a full brigade to Lithuania reflects what German Chancellor Olaf Scholz called a Zeitenwende, or turning point in German security policy, announced in February 2022 following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The broader NATO context is also important here. The alliance has established enhanced forward presence battle groups in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland since 2017. According to NATO's 2024 fact sheet, these multinational battalions currently total approximately 10,000 troops across all 4 countries. At the NATO summit in Vilnius in July 2023, alliance leaders approved new regional defense plans for Eastern Europe. NATO's website states these plans involve pre-positioned equipment, improved logistics, and faster reinforcement capabilities to defend the Baltic states. The United States has also increased its presence. According to the U.S. European Command, approximately 100,000 U.S. troops are stationed in Europe as of 2024, with rotational deployments in Poland and the Baltic states. This is up from about 60,000 before 2022. However, we need to be careful about overstating the offensive capabilities or intentions here. Military analysts interviewed by the Center for Strategic and International Studies note that NATO's force posture in the region remains primarily defensive, focused on deterring potential Russian aggression rather than threatening Russian territory. Now let's examine the situation from Kaliningrad's perspective and how Russia has responded to these NATO developments. Kaliningrad has faced genuine logistical challenges, particularly regarding transit through Lithuania. In June 2022, Lithuania announced it would restrict the rail transit of certain goods to Kaliningrad, citing European Union sanctions on Russia following the Ukraine invasion. Reuters reported that these restrictions applied to steel, iron ore, and other materials covered by EU sanctions. According to Russia's Transportation Ministry data cited by TASS news agency, rail cargo transit to Kaliningrad decreased by approximately 20–30% in late 2022 compared to pre-sanctions levels. However, Lithuania clarified that passenger transit and many categories of goods remained unrestricted. The European Commission intervened in July 2022, issuing guidance that allowed for continued transit of most goods while maintaining sanctions compliance. This eased some of the immediate pressure, but transit remains more complicated and slower than before 2022. Russia has increased sea transport to compensate. The ferry service between Ust-Luga on the Russian mainland and Kaliningrad has expanded operations, according to reporting by the Baltic News Service. However, sea transport is indeed more expensive and weather-dependent than rail transit. Regarding the economic impact on Kaliningrad, data is limited and sometimes contradictory. The Kaliningrad regional government reported in 2023 that unemployment in the region stood at approximately 3.5%, though independent verification of this figure is difficult. Some Russian business media have suggested higher unofficial rates, but these claims are hard to confirm. There have been reports of population decline. According to Russia's statistical agency Rosstat, Kaliningrad's population decreased slightly from about 994,000 in 2020 to approximately 950,000 in 2024. Some of this reflects Russia's broader demographic challenges, though the sanctions and isolation have likely contributed. Russia's military deployments in Kaliningrad have also changed since 2022. According to Estonian military intelligence assessments cited by ERR News, Russia has withdrawn some units from Kaliningrad for redeployment to Ukraine. The UK Ministry of Defense noted in intelligence updates during 2023 that some Russian equipment had been moved from Kaliningrad to active combat zones. However, Kaliningrad remains militarily significant. The Baltic Fleet is still based there, and Russia maintains air defense systems including S-400 batteries. The Russian Ministry of Defense announced in March 2024 that modernization of military facilities in Kaliningrad continues despite the broader conflict. Russian officials have responded to NATO's buildup with strong rhetoric. In February 2024, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova stated that NATO's increased presence in Eastern Europe represented a threat to Russian security, and that Russia would take appropriate defensive measures. However, beyond rhetoric, Russia's actual military response has been limited, likely due to commitments in Ukraine. The energy situation adds another layer of complexity to Kaliningrad's challenges. The Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, disconnected from the Soviet-era Brel electricity grid in February 2024 and synchronized with the European continental grid, according to official announcements from all three countries' governments. This synchronization was planned for years and represents a significant shift in energy independence for the Baltic states. For Kaliningrad, it means greater energy isolation from the European grid system. Kaliningrad has its own power generation capacity. The Kaliningrad Thermal Power Plant 2, which came online in 2010, has a capacity of 450 megawatts according to Russian energy company InterRAO. However, the region has historically relied on electricity imports from Lithuania during peak demand periods. According to Lithuanian transmission system operator Litgrid, electricity exports to Kaliningrad have been significantly reduced since 2022, though not completely cut off. The technical ability to transmit electricity remains, but political factors have limited cross-border energy trade. Natural gas is another critical issue. Kaliningrad receives gas via pipeline through Lithuania. The Lithuanian gas transmission system operator Amber Grid confirmed in 2023 that gas transit to Kaliningrad continues, as EU sanctions do not prohibit natural gas transit. However, Lithuania has stated it could halt transit if broader EU policy changes. The economic situation in Kaliningrad is mixed. The region's special economic zone status, which provided tax incentives for businesses, has helped maintain some economic activity. According to the Kaliningrad Development Corporation, the region's gross regional product grew by approximately 2% in 2023, though this is below Russia's national average. However, international trade has suffered significantly. Kaliningrad's port handled approximately 60 million tons of cargo in 2021, but this declined to about 45 million tons in 2023, according to the Russian Seaports Association. Sanctions and reduced European trade are the primary factors. The automotive sector has been affected. The Avtotor plant, which assembled vehicles for international brands including BMW and Kia, has suspended operations for several foreign brands due to supply chain disruptions and international companies leaving the Russian market. Russian news agency RIA Novosti reported in 2023 that the plant shifted to assembling vehicles for the Russian market only. So what do these developments mean for broader European security? Let's look at what military and strategic experts are actually saying. Dr. Mathieu Bouleg, a research fellow at Chatham House's Russia and Eurasia program, wrote in a 2024 analysis that Kaliningrad's strategic value to Russia has become more complicated. While it remains important for power projection into the Baltic Sea, its geographic isolation makes it difficult to reinforce and defend if tensions escalate. The International Institute for Strategic Studies published an assessment in 2024 noting that NATO's enhanced presence in the Baltic region has improved the alliance's ability to defend the Suwałki corridor, but that the fundamental geographic vulnerabilities remain. The corridor is still narrow, and both sides would face significant challenges in any military scenario. Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, former commander of U.S. Army Europe, stated in an interview with Defense News in 2024 that NATO's improved readiness and presence in Eastern Europe has strengthened deterrence. However, he emphasized that the alliance must continue investing in logistics and infrastructure to ensure rapid reinforcement capabilities. The Brookings Institution published research in 2024 examining the economic dimensions of Kaliningrad's isolation. The analysis concluded that while sanctions and transit restrictions have created genuine hardships, Kaliningrad is not facing complete economic collapse. Russia has adapted through increased sea transport and domestic supply chains, though at higher cost. Regarding the risk of military conflict, most serious military analysts emphasize that neither side wants war in this region. Dr. Kristen Van Brusgaard of the University of Oslo told Foreign Affairs in 2024 that Russia understands Kaliningrad is vulnerable to NATO military pressure, which actually provides a deterrent effect against Russian aggression elsewhere. The Carnegie Endowment for International Peace noted in a 2024 report that Kaliningrad's situation reflects broader tensions between Russia and the West, but that practical cooperation on some issues, like civilian transit and environmental protection, continues despite political tensions. It's also worth noting that civilian life continues in Kaliningrad. While the region faces economic challenges and some isolation, it's not accurate to describe it as completely cut off. According to the Polish border guard, thousands of Russians cross from Kaliningrad into Poland each month for various purposes, though visa restrictions have tightened. The broader Baltic security environment has definitely become more tense since 2022. NATO has strengthened its eastern flank significantly, while Russia maintains a military presence in Kaliningrad despite reducing some forces. Both sides are engaging in what could be called competitive deterrence, building up forces to prevent the other side from taking aggressive action. Now let me give you my analysis of what this really means and where this situation might be heading. First, the most important point. The massive NATO military buildup in Poland and the Baltic states is primarily a response to Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. These aren't offensive preparations. They're alliance members taking their security seriously after watching Russia launch a large-scale war in Europe. That context matters enormously. Second, Kaliningrad is genuinely in a difficult position. It's a Russian exclave surrounded by NATO countries, and that geographic reality becomes more challenging as relations deteriorate. Russia's decision to invade Ukraine has made life harder for nearly 1 million Russian citizens living in Kaliningrad who had nothing to do with that decision. That's a real human cost that often gets lost in strategic analysis. Third, the rhetoric on all sides needs to be taken with a grain of salt. When we hear dramatic statements about destroying regions or cutting off access, we need to remember these are often political statements aimed at domestic or international audiences, not actual military plans. Both NATO and Russia understand that actual war in this region would be catastrophic for everyone involved. Fourth, the economic pressure on Kaliningrad is real, but not total. Yes, sanctions have disrupted trade and transit is more difficult. Yes, international companies have left, but the region hasn't collapsed. Russia has found workarounds, and life continues, albeit under harder conditions. We should be accurate about the challenges without exaggerating them into apocalyptic scenarios. Looking ahead, I think we're likely to see a continued pattern of military posturing and buildup on both sides, combined with careful management to avoid actual conflict. Neither NATO nor Russia benefits from war over Kaliningrad. The exclave will likely remain isolated to some degree, but probably not completely cut off. The real risk isn't necessarily planned aggression from either side, it's miscalculation. With so many forces in close proximity, an accident or misinterpreted action could escalate quickly. That's why military-to-military communication channels and clear diplomatic signaling remain crucial. For the people living in Kaliningrad, they're caught in a geopolitical situation not of their making. They deserve to live in peace and prosperity regardless of decisions made in Moscow or Brussels. Unfortunately, they're paying a price for broader conflicts they didn't choose. So, to recap the key points. 1. NATO has significantly strengthened its military presence in Poland and the Baltic states since 2022, including major equipment purchases and troop deployments. 2. Kaliningrad faces real logistical and economic challenges due to its geographic isolation and EU sanctions on Russia. 3. Russia has reduced some military forces in Kaliningrad but maintains a significant presence there. And 4. While tensions are high, actual military conflict remains unlikely because neither side benefits from it. What's your take on this situation? Do you think NATO's buildup is necessary deterrence or provocative escalation? How do you see this affecting European security long term? I want to hear your perspective in the comments below. For more detailed analysis on European security issues and global developments, visit my blog at blakethornhill.blogspot.com, where I post additional research and commentary. If you found this analysis valuable, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future coverage of critical international issues. This is Blake Thornhill bringing you the truth. Stay informed.